Alright, so this is going to be a walk cycle. I want to make it walk in place and then have the ability to move it forward and save out your speeds and have it at different speeds, so you can animate it at like 100 frames per second or 20 frames per second and adjust it without having to ruin your whole animation. So go ahead and throw his arms into FK. Grab all the controllers, set a key on it. I want to start off with the lower body. I'm actually going to start off with the whole pose as if I'm animating in 2D. But this will be the contact pose that I'll start off with. I'm just throwing the legs at a certain distance, not anything in particular. I'm going to go ahead and rotate the spine about 5. Or yeah, 5. Be the opposite. I'm going to rotate the spine the opposite of the direction the legs and the hips are going to be going. Oh, then for this particular control character rig, I need the knee look-ats to be parented to the world, so that the knees follow them and not the hips. I'm going to go ahead and put my arms down, let them hang to the side as if he's walking. Although I'm going to be focused on the legs first and then the spine, I just like to sort of put everything in place where it's going to be. The head, I want to make that parented to the world, so it always looks forward. And depending on what rig you are using, that may vary as far as what you can do with that. The hands, I'm just going to make it into a basic shape. Just to get out of that karate chop looking stance that it's in, or pose, excuse me. Alright, so this is his first pose, his contact pose. Let me throw out this leg just a little bit more further. Throw this one out a little further. And for right now, I am going to say we're going to animate this character at maybe 100 frames per second. So I'm actually going to switch my frame count to 30 frames per second. Make sure I snap my key, or all my current keys that I have, so they all can be on frame 1. Now that everything's on frame 1, I'm going to set my timeline to 33 frames, because I want to animate every 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, every 5 frames, depending on how you want to count it out. I'm counting each individual block and then a key. The key's going to happen right here, so every 4 or 5 frames up to 33 frames. So within a second, which will be 30 frames, because that 30 frames is a second, I'm going to animate the character to about 100 frames per second. So the first thing I want to do when I do this is I want to make my walk cycle first. I want to make my walk cycle. I know within 100 frames, this distance of the feet walking may or may not work. But let me double check real quick, because I've been animated on different characters, different sizes, and 100 frames, 100 units is way too far for anybody to walk in a second. I believe the characters I have used are a lot bigger to cover that distance. So just to make this work, let's go 20 frames. So he's going to walk 20 frames per second. I'm going to go all the way up to the last frame in my animation at 33, punching 20 frames. Alright, so now my character is going to walk 20 frames per second. That seems slow, but he's not taking huge steps. He's just casually walking. So here's the thing. We obviously don't want to make the character move forward through his animation and leave his move all by himself, because we want to make this to make the character move, but in order for the feet to not slide, we got to utilize certain methods to make sure his feet don't slide. But the first thing we want to do is just animate a plain cycle. So on the main controller at the very bottom, some of it's called the move all. I'm used to saying the move all controller because it moves the whole character. This one is called the master controller. So if a master controller, it'll be different on every character, so be careful. But if as long as you grab that controller and it can move everything on the character, that's probably it. So on that controller, I'm going to go to my Z translation and right click, mute selected. So now if I press play, the character is not moving forward, but we know we want him to move forward, but he's not moving forward. So what we want to do now is basically make all the key poses. I want to go ahead and start off at frame 17 and basically make the opposite pose of this one. And I'm just going to simply, two ways I can do this. I can either select all keys, just simply move all the controllers to where he's in a different position, or if you have a mirroring tool that mirrors your poses, you can use that as well. So the other way to get the exact pose from here, but just looped, is copying all the numbers, and when you paste them, you want to put like the negative value of it, or the opposite value. So for my waist, the first frame, the waist is at 9. If I copy that, go to my other frame, paste it, and throw a -9, it's at the exact value as it is at 1, just the opposite side. So you can do the same thing with the feet. So say at the feet, at this foot, right now the translation on the Z is -4.51. I can copy that, go to frame 17, select the opposite foot, and then paste it on there, and now it's at the same distance. Or you could do a method where it's a little bit easier. Since the x-axis has no value, you can easily go to frame 1. Now you want to make sure you copy the frame within your timeline. So you're going to right click, go to copy, press copy, go to your middle frame, press that back one, oops, cancel. You want to hit middle mouse, and then I think I just copied it. I'm going to do it all over. Copy, and then, oops, wrong one, sorry. And then paste. And now I got the same exact value right here onto this foot. So it's the same location. So the distance between these 2 feet from here to here is going to be exactly the same. Why is that important? Because it may be important if it actually hits the right value, and you want to make sure your feet are walking the same distance and whatnot. So let's go ahead and do the same here. Well, I'm going to get the value of this one. Oh, keep doing it. Copy, click on here, and paste. And if you're new to this and you're not used to doing stuff like this, this is very useful for animating. Alright, now I'm just going to go ahead and move the toe up where it needs to be, and I can go ahead and do the same with the spines, because I think I selected these 3, and they're all at 5. It was at 5 at the very beginning, just to make it simple. It was at 5 here, so all I'm saying to do is hit a -5, and I got the opposite rotation on my spine. Same thing with the arms, but I'm not going to worry too much about them. I'm just going to swing one forward, swing the other one back a tad bit. When you actually walk and your arm doesn't swing all the way back, it just straightens out. But this character is a little bit exaggerated, as of most are in animating. So now I have the exact same pose, which is the other contact pose. So I have a contact pose, and my contact pose. So in between these poses, now I can make my other poses, which you can go either or. You can make all like your contact pose, your down pose, pass pose, and up pose, and back to your contact pose, I'm just doing the extremes first, just so I can have that distance to be the same. And also, I can do a quick check on my moving, just to get an eyeball check as far as unmute selected. I move all, just to see, whoops, did not work. Oh, here's why it didn't work. I accidentally set keys on it. Just to get an idea if it sort of looks like it might work. Oh, and here's the other thing. It's very first frame. Needs to be here. So I just middle mouse, press S, and it's going to copy that pose. Go back to here. Hit 20 frames. Our character's going to walk 20 frames in a second. So you can almost look at it and be like, well, it looks like it might work. It looks like it's going to be pretty close from right there. So with that, let's start from the get-go. And let's just you can either delete the keys off the master controller or just mute it again. Either it's not going to matter because you're going to have to redo everything on that part again anyways, which is not hard at all. And a few more steps. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and make our other poses. So the other pose from this one is going to be our contact pose. All right, we got a contact pose. It's our down pose now. So I'm going to go ahead. Oops, I haven't set up my viewports again. Put this down. So that right there is my start of my down pose. Oops, my apologies. This needs to start at frame 5. It's going to be on frame 5 because every 4 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, then a key, 1, 2, 3, 4, then a key. I want to have my down pose, then my passing pose, and my up pose. Starting off with the down pose. It's my dude stepping down. So go ahead and key him here. I'm not going to worry too much about animating the spines and stuff. I'm just going to let the computer sort of work that out for me right now. Normally you don't want the computer to do anything for you. When it comes to animating, you do all the work. Alright, so I got my contact pose. Throw another contact pose. So I'm just going to right here. So if you ever want the same frame or the same pose to be on a different frame, you just go to that frame, middle mouse to the next frame, or whatever you want to be anywhere, and just click there with the middle mouse, and it'll hold the whole position, whatever's in your Maya scene. It'll just hold that position, and you can move it, and as long as you don't scrub the timeline, it'll keep everything in that position until you move it or key it. Right here I'm keying it because I want it to be part of the passing pose. I'm going to move this one because I wanted this foot to come up to pass. Alright, now that I have that, it's coming down, this passing pose. Set a key on everything here. The next is the up pose. The up pose, we're going to bring them up just a tad bit. Make the necessary adjustments. Make sure there's a key on every pose. And now I'm back to my original pose. Now obviously there's going to be some things that are going to need to be tweaked out. But for the most part, you got half of your walk cycle sort of blocked out, as you could say. It's sort of mapped out. So now we got to do the opposite for the other half. Now here comes a point to where if you had a mirroring tool, you can easily, grab this pose, middle mouse to the location you need to go, and hit a mirror animation that will just mirror the animation for you, and you won't have to worry about it. So I'm not have the luxury to have that tool just yet. So I'm just gonna go do it the old school way, which I'm gonna basically repose the character. And also for you guys that are beginning, this isn't a bad thing. Reposing the character again after you done spent that time to make those other poses, you're reposing the character. You're like, man, why am I gonna redo this again? If I had a tool, I can just make these poses faster. It's called practice. The more you practice at something, the better you're gonna get at it. So don't be too quick and too keen on trying to find the fastest shortcut just yet. You'll need those shortcuts in the future, but right now, if you're just starting off, this is fine right here. Just redoing the poses and just getting more practice out of it. So first, I have my contact pose, then my down pose. Wow, that is bizarre. All right, and then your down pose. And one thing, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in enable step preview, so I'm not too focused on everything else that's in between here. So I got my down pose. Go ahead and start mapping out my arms a little bit. Or no, I'll leave my arms there as they are. It's there. He's walking. Boom. So key here. Now it's going to be the passing pose. Go ahead, passing pose. I'm going to take it out of enable step mode just so I can let whatever motion take place that the computer's going to generate for me, and let it do some of the work. And mostly I'm just doing that so I can get a smooth transition of exact values from left to right and things of that nature. So the foot comes down, it's at its passing pose, it's up on its way, but not completely. 5 more frames down, he's going to be in its up pose. Go ahead and oops, nope. Good, set a key here, put it back into the step mode or preview. This is the up pose, so I'm going to tweak this out to be so. Whoops, I totally went the wrong way on that. Alright, so now I got all my poses and I got what looks like somewhat of a walk cycle. Alright, so let's do another check on our distance this character is walking by deleting all the in-between keys from the master controller, going to the very last key on Control Z and hitting 20, and then obviously unmuting that translation key so we can see what our character looks like he's walking. Make sure you enable preview, and then you sort of see how he's got another walk going. You can see what keys I sort of need to work with. But then, at the most part, you can sort of see that his feet are not sliding terribly bad, especially that we haven't locked anything down. So the next thing I want to do is I want to lock down his feet. And here's how you would do it. So, very first frame, as his feet comes down, his foot's down here. So obviously you want his foot to stay completely still until it comes up and starts to move again. Here's how we would accomplish that. So I'm going to create a visual cue to sort of help me out, and so that you guys can see what I'm doing. This cube I want to make into a small, about this. I'm going to go into my side view. Alright, so what we have here is we have our block that we want to be our marker. So this block is going to be the marker for when this hill touches. That hill touches, say, frame, say frame 6, that hill touches. So I want to put this right here as marker 1. That's my first marker. So what I'm going to do is that marker, which will be 6, is I'm going to align my move all, because it starts here, yeah, frame 6. Oh, sorry, not my move all, but my foot. Once this foot hits here, it's at 5. I'm going to go to frame 9. I'm going to move that foot to be at that same location. That foot goes up. So at frame 9, since the foot starts coming up, at frame 9 we know this part is at the location that we want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate that, put one at the front, and now I want to follow this front marker. Where that front marker goes, I'm going to put this foot there, sort of stay. And see how my leg's bent, which makes my walk cycle look very, very off. I'm going to go ahead and adjust it just so that it isn't off. And adjust it again. This frame to make sure it is still on. Then my key's popping. And that'll be why. So I'm going to go ahead and fix all that by just hitting that key. Let's move all that out. So that won't happen no more. Or at least I think it won't. Oh, that was an X. Sorry, wrong one. Probably should just do it from all, since I think they're all like that. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing the controllers, or my graph editor. My keys are all out of whack, so I'm either going to be, you can either like do clamped. I think that's clamped. It's not showing it. But you can either do clamped, spline, or one of these that sort of help that out to get those in the right place that you need it, so that will not happen anymore. And you can go on about adjusting. It may happen, for whatever reason that's happening, it may happen in your rotation, which I did not fix. Rotation I definitely need to fix as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all that fixed out. Alright. So now my foot's staying there. As my foot goes up, I still want my toe to be right there. Now this is the thing about animating in a certain frame count that you're trying to keep in. It changes your poses as you go. And sometimes you know that it's doing it, and sometimes you gotta work with it. Right here, sort of gotta work with it. So for that foot, to keep that one locked. That's sort of where that one needs to be. I can, however, adjust it because I see that this foot's coming down. It could probably come down a little sooner. Maybe at frame 4 I could have pushed them back just a little bit, so I can utilize this footing a little bit more. But one thing I want to do with this foot, because I don't want it to be completely up just yet, it's gonna pump that right there. Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. Looks like I'm having more curve edge. I don't know what is going on. So I'm just going to add that in there. Now I want to go ahead and tackle the other foot as well. So I got this. So at the very end, I know I cannot move this foot. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate these two more, and this will be the toe, and the heel is close enough. It'll be right there. So now to make sure the heel on the other foot sort of lands in the right spot, so I'm going to go with this one. It looks like they got the same issue with my keys on this one as well. So let me just go ahead and knock that out. Grab all these. Select all this. There's F. Oops. Yes, let's go ahead. So now I have it to where both feet are basically following, they're basically not sliding. They're sliding a little bit because I have still got to polish it up, but the general motion's there, and there's obviously a lot of polishing that needs to happen as far as to get the knee to not pop and everything else not to sort of wobble. But in short, this will allow you to tweak out the animation and then also put whatever speed you need to for your walk cycles. So if your walk cycle is at 20 versus 25 versus 30 versus 10, you can still keep the same animation, but you just have to utilize how your feet plant and find a marker to make that happen. So I'm going to go ahead and polish this up the rest of the way with the feet and add in a little bit of personality to sort of top this off. And the way I want to do this is I'm going to stop with the trying to match the feet just now, because I'm at a decent place to where I can come back and make that work really well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back, grab my master controller, hit Z, mute the Z, and now that that's muted, I'm going to go in and just animate the character as far as the personality goes and stuff. I want to sort of knock that out now. So here I'm going to start knocking out the side to side on his waist. I think I'm going to go with that first, because right now if you look straight at it, it looks really, I am a robot, especially with my face looking like that. So I want to add the side to side in. So when my foot's planted down on this side, I'm going to go ahead and push him this way. I'm doing it on X, so I'm gonna just say he goes 1, just for the sake of it. When he comes down, he's gonna stay on 1 or ish. As he comes up, still stay on the side, and then makes the transition to the other side, which will be a -1. Alright, so I'm going to tweak out this side as well. There. There. And I sort of got this little lint type of thing going on. So I'm going to go ahead and go into, so that's the X, it's the red. Click on that. Press F. Let's get this a little bit bigger. I'm going to go ahead and tweak this out. So what I'm going to do is I want to make sure my extremes, which I believe is like around these two or around these two, are my extremes. Just going to smooth those out. Copy this first one. What I'm doing is copying the value of it, going to this very last 1, 2, 3, basically this one right here. Oh, no, sorry, maybe this one. Leave that negative there. Let's do the opposite. So now this one and this one match. Then I'm just going to go ahead and go through the others, and let's let them match as well. We got the curve so it's not hitting, oops, so it's not hitting on a hard hit. Sort of check out, see what my animation is looking like. Not bad. Maybe a little too much on the side to side, so I'm just gonna select all the keys. Select my little boundary box guy. Squeeze it down a little bit here. Squeeze it down a little bit there. Make sure you're still at 0, because that's where you're supposed to be. See how that goes. A little bit better. So now I'm going to go ahead and tweak out the waist. On the waist side to side, it's on the X rotation. And you see the X rotation is just all over the place. Go ahead and spline that one. Now you see that it cuts fast and then it slowly goes back to the other side. What I want to happen is when this hits down here, I want you to start pushing your way back that way sooner. So it's not a hard transition. It's a slower transition. Keeping the keys basically in the same spot, but not really moving them out or making much change out of them. I am going to find out where my key or my extremes are. So this extreme right here, it is at copy 9. This extreme, which will be the very middle, go paste. Oh, identical. Going back, this one actually loops over. So instead of that, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that, delete these keys, and just make it as smooth. And just to make sure this does go smooth within the graph editor that I can see, I can loop the animation or the curve. You see that as like a smooth. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to do that. I can add a little bit of 'cause right now it's very subtle, it's very gentle. So one thing I do want to add is when the foot presses down here, I do want to push it up a little bit that way. Not so much where it looks like he's swinging his hips, but enough that it sort of feels like he's putting weight on it, and then it's releasing. Some more with the feet. Let's get the feet out of the way completely. Let's get the feet smoothed out in a way that will make the feet work. Nope, one more thing. Right before we hit the feet, totally forgetting the waist, the up and down. Let's get that locked out real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and put my continuous keys or on the preview so you can sort of see how it loops. And right now it's not good. So he comes down, hits down, and comes up. Then his up stage is about yay high, which I want to go ahead and put that for all the ups so that we're all not you. You're up, and you're up. There. Then I need to smooth this out so that it can sort of come down properly. And I'm using basically this invisible, what's grayed out is just the looping aspect of it, and I'm matching up the curves from this angle, from this one. I'm gonna do the same to here. Generally, the people would say, you know, don't have your curves like sort of doing this kind of thing. Probably should listen. Still want to try to keep everything on the same key. I'm going to drag these down just a little bit. Just want to make sure I get my up and down the way I want it before I move on, so that my feet won't be affected by this anymore. I know this is the way I want it, so that I won't have to keep coming back to it and adjusting it and adjusting it. And I can just adjust my feet and everything to the way I want it to be, knowing that I'm not going to touch this up and down anymore. So as of right now, I'm not going to touch the up and down anymore because I guess I'm doing the animation. Like I say, I'm not doing it. But I want to go ahead and start flushing everything else out with the feet. So one thing I'm going to do with the feet first is I want to angle them out just to add a little bit of personality, a little bit more style to the foot. So the foot's about to come down, but I want to press the plus button to make my gizmo bigger. I want to have his feet coming down sideways. So when he lands, his foot sort of like this, it drags back. What I'm going to do here, so I'm going to keep animating. I want to come back and get the toe sort of be at the right spot. I do that just so I can get this kind of flop going with the feet. I think it adds a little bit more to the walk itself. So as he goes, and I'm not going to wait. I need the foot to come down a little bit sooner than what it's doing. I'll have his foot be completely down right here. Key the toe, and the toe up a little bit as well, just to get that extra sort of umph in it. So now it doesn't feel like he's walking soft, I guess you could say. But it just gives it so much, a little bit more flavor than the foot just going straight forward. So I'm going to go ahead and do that same treatment to this foot. Also give the same treatment of getting that foot down sooner. Now I have it to where my feet Alright, now they look a little goofy because I need to do a few more things, which the reason the feet are doing that is I need to push the feet in on the x-axis, grab the x, I'm going to push those in on both feet. Grab the X on this side as well. Make sure that they're going the right way. Now you can sort of see how my feet, the ankles sort of clip into each other. That's where, so when this foot comes across right here, I'm going to bolt him out just a little bit. And he's going to basically dodge that foot. I'm going to do the same thing with this foot. I'm going to bump him out a couple frames, a couple units on each frame to sort of clear the other one. Because when you walk, your feet are actually trying to walk you on a straight line to keep you balanced as you're walking. That might be a little too much. I might have to go back and tweak out just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and flesh out my knees now. And for the knees, you can delete all the keys in between, so you can adjust them over time. Those aren't really that important to have the same spot, just at the key points. Like for instance, right here, it's going to have them out to about right there. Maybe a little right in there. And this one I may have this foot over too much. So I'm just going to go back to my X and push it out this way. Oops. Oh, which way? Oh, didn't select everybody. Which way? Let's go that way, and then that should do it. Yippers. All right. Alright, so now that I got my feet somewhat stepping and feeling like they're stepping, and if I were to unmute my X, or the Z, sorry, unmute the Z, and unmute selected, you can see that he walks forward. He's not completely staying, feet aren't completely not sliding, but they're down to, it's down to a minimum, but you got your feet almost to a point to where you can almost be done with it. So all that needs to be done now is just a lot of polish, a lot of cleaning up your knees, and then we got to tackle the arms and the spine. But the hard part is pretty much over. Alright, so now that we got him walking forward, got all that squared away, let's put him back so that he stays still. I'm going to go ahead and mute the translation Z again, mute selected. I'm going to go ahead and knock out the spine, arms, and the head, get that stuff going the right way, and then we'll head on to the sort of fix up the rest of this animation and polish it up. So let's tackle the spine first. Now with the spine, first thing I want to do is I probably do want to get rid of all the controllers, all the keys I have within the middle. Delete that. Oops. Go ahead and delete this. Like I said before, I'm not used to animating FK spines. Well, I haven't in a while, like a long while. But one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure the pose is held just a little bit longer, instead of, because right now obviously I can delete the keys in between, so everything just sort of moves, you know, robotically in a sense, from one angle to the other. Several things I would need to do. One of the things is when he takes a step forward, I want his lead shoulder to sort of hit at this point a little sooner, but not exactly at the same frame. So what I want to do is I want to drop a few frames, middle mouse at frame 15, then drag it down to frame 10. So what's going to happen from frame 1 to 10, it's going to get close to what I want it to be at the end, but it's just going to hold this just a little bit longer. Then from frame 17, it's going to start moving back basically to this pose, but I'm going to do the same thing where I want to go to frame 30, then bring it back to about, let's say 10. So I want to bring you back to about frame 25. So now it's going to hit, the spines are going to hit these locations a little sooner. And I'm sort of just mapping it out, blocking it out in the sense that, so it won't be like how do I want to say this? It won't be a continuous flow back and forth of the rotation. So we're going to hit certain points sooner, and you can sort of see it in the curve editor. Let's see. Let me just select the top spine here, and look at my red rotation. So it's hitting this location at frame 10 sooner, but it's not exactly, it's almost like a move and hold, but it's not exactly hitting the same excuse me, the same spot, same number. So the number should be off just enough. Obviously it starts to flatten out right in here. I don't want to necessarily have it flatten out. Let's just sort of put a nice little curve into it, so it sort of meets here. And then the same thing here, I'm going to have that curve sort of hit. But the one thing, if you notice, is I'm going to make this loop. And if the loop, you can sort of see where it's grayed out, that sort of has a hard edge right there. So that's what I don't want. I want this to smoothly go into this curve, and I want it to smoothly come out. So I want to move my tangents like so, so I can get that smooth transition. Now here's the catch. Now that I did that, that's only on one controller, and I want that same movement on all the controllers. Make sure there's no more. Okay, so on X, what I want to do, I'm just going to simply copy this, Control C, go to the next controller, frame my X, and you can see this how the other one looked previously. I'm just going to select that all, Control V. Oops, that didn't work. Put you back here, sorry. Obviously, make sure your keyframe, your timeline is all the way at the end, so it can, or at 1, so it can properly paste all your keys. So now that I got that spine the same, I'm gonna go ahead and do the other spine. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to somewhat go and clean the curves one by one each time, which isn't the worst thing to do, but this sort of helps that process a little faster. And then definitely go back and check to make sure everything sort of comes out as clean as you want it to be, which it didn't on this last one. Alright, so now that I got that motion somewhat smooth, and this is just the torso that I'm going for right here. And looking at it, I am going to go back and tweak those knees out. I think I over-exaggerated a little bit on those. Okay, so now that we got the side to side going with the shoulders and the torso, I want to put a little left and right, and then a little back and forward to it as well. So I'm going to start with the left and right. I'm going to grab the 3 mid controllers on my FK. And one thing I want to be sure of is I'm going to make sure that, because I don't want to rotate it this way using my tool, because it's going to rotate all 3 rotations at the same time. I actually want to rotate it on, I believe it's X. No, not X, but is it Y? Yes, I want to rotate on Y. I only want to use my slider so that it only rotates on Y. So when I go into the curve editor or graph editor, it only utilizes the curve that I'm working with. So with that, it's not going to be that much either. I'm not going to rotate it that much. You know what? Let me go ahead and grab this last waist controller way down there. Right, no, then again, never mind. Alright, because I need it mostly on the top ones. So on the first frame, I'm just going to use my Y middle mouse, and just say, oh, sorry, middle mouse. I'm going to put it at 0.5. 1. Let's do 1. Sorry, -1. Needs to be going, it's going to be leaning, the way his foot stepping, that's where his shoulder is going to be sort of dipping. How we got this cross dip right here. I want to put that at -1 at frame 1. At frame 17, I want to put it at 1, the opposite, and then back at the last frame, I want to put it at -1. And this will get that side to side sort of motion with the shoulders going back and forth, sort of match the rest of the walk, gives more personality. And the reason I done all the controllers at the same time on the same rotation channel is so that I can go into the curve editor at any time I need to and clean these things up. Obviously, my tangents are not set to be spline tangents, so that's why they keep coming out the way they keep coming out. I just need to go in here and just adjust them so that they do work. Ooh. And make sure obviously that they loop at the end, loop properly. And at this point, because I'm not really having them sort of hit at any type of angle or anything, I can get rid of probably the keys in between. And just to double check, I'm going to go ahead and pop these on. So to add a little bit more here. So go ahead and do that for each Y rotation. Just getting rid of unnecessary keys. Putting in, making adjustments, and then making sure it loops properly. And for this walk cycle, I'm not going to really offset, at least I think I'm not going to really offset the keys in the actual, no, not. So I'm going to let this sit as it is. I'll come back to those knees because those knees keep popping out and they keep telling me that I'm doing it too much. Alright, so we got the side to side. rotation and the left and right rotation on the torso. Now for that up and down sort of in the back. So that's our last rotation we're going to mess with, which will be on the Z, which will be this way. Boop. So this would be that little offset that we'll see in the walk. Like not as you come down, it'll be normal, but as he hits, he'll start to lean forward. And then as he comes up, he'll start to be upright about the time he hits his apex before his contact pose. So what I'm going to do is at frame 5, I'm going to tilt them back on the Z. Let's see how far. Ooh, too much. I want to go about -1. Then you'll see as he comes down, then he hits at frame 10. I want to put him at 1. So he has that little ump, and then at 17 is going to be normal. Then at 20, I'm going to put out -1. Oop, not at frame 20, let's go 20. At frame 21, he's -1. Then at frame 25, he's at 1 again. Now give me that sort of forward motion that I'm sort of looking for. And then, as usual, got to go in. Let's check out my curves. Z this time. Same thing. Fix these keys. Got too many miles on my computer. So what I'm doing now, I'm going through and just putting all my keys to spline. And so they sort of flow through each other, and then I'm going to go back one by one and just tweak them out. So this one, press F. I want to make sure that they loop so they play well with each other. Put my continuous keys on. And you can see how this sort of looks. This does not go fluidly into this one, so it needs to arc, so that it does. I'll probably get rid of this key to make that smooth. I'm going to just jump on to the next Z, do the same thing, or as I showed you earlier, you could copy and paste these values in. I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. Make sure everything sort of flows together. Delete that key. Continuous. Alright, so now that I got that, got a little bit of the motion going. Let's go in our front view. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, maybe he's doing it a little too much and he's hitting a little too hard on the forward motion a tad bit. So I am going to go through, and the cool thing is I can go ahead and select all these Z rotations, and they're all selected right now, and to sort of adjust them all the same. So right now this hit happens to me a little too fast, so I want to get them both and move them over just one, and then shrink them down, all of you guys, just a little bit, and to see how that looks. Tone it down a bit, but now it seems like I maybe have it too far, coming too far back at the bottom. So I'm just going to tweak those up a little bit. It's getting there. I think I sort of on frame 10. Where are you at? Yeah. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both. Select my little, so I can just adjust them all at once. Just tone you down, press play, see how that goes. Not bad. Get out this side, tweak it a little bit, see how that goes. All right, now let's move on to the head, or yeah, let's move on to the head and then we'll tackle the arms last. So with the head, so obviously when the character's going down and he hits, his head's going to dip a little. This rig, I want to use the neck to sort of dip the head. So I want to pop the neck a little bit forward. So when he comes down, his head pops forward and it comes back, but I'm going to have it come back just a little bit less so it doesn't pop back. This goes. Okay, so I have it on the passing pose. Actually, I have it come down. I start to come down on the passing pose, and then again on the passing pose, and then this one, yeah, I want to offset the keys, sort of delete some keys as I go. So he goes down instead of having pop right away. Put that pose 3 comes up. Alright, so what I'm doing, just so I know that I'm not going insane, do have a little bit too much, like a gooseneck. But what I'm doing is I'm putting the frame that I didn't manipulate a little closer to the beginning frame, so it has a longer strand of time to sort of get down into this position and then slowly come up to this one, and then vice versa, where it hits down and then it slowly comes up. I might just get rid of this one. So this one as well. Oh crap. So right now I got the head sort of going, but I guess the other thing that definitely needs to be addressed is these eyes. These eyes are killing myself. They're killing me. So I'm not going to have the eyes follow this. I'm going to have the eyes sort of follow what I want them to follow. Which right now, if I have... Oh, maybe that's not it. I think it's right here. So if I turn those off, his eyes no longer follow that, which is good because I just don't want... Yeah. Also because it's sort of creepy having his eyes so wide open. I'm going to fix his eyelids. His eyelid up. Let's put this down about right here. Just give him some normal people eyes. Oh, what frame did I do that on? I did it on that one. So go ahead here and just get the eyes out of the way. Oops. Delete that. Delete that. Oh, got something going on in here. Oh, I never deleted this, so it literally follows. Alright. So now that I got that little thing that's bugging me out of the way, I'm going to go ahead. I think I am adding a little too much motion on everything. Just, I don't know, I guess the way the character looks, I feel like I got to add more wobbles and everything else. So I want to tone it down a little bit, but before I do that, I want to add the head motion. So the head comes up, like as he's coming down, his head comes up. As he contacts, and he goes forward, I'm just going to pop the head down, delete the key right after it, and let it slowly come up. Frame here. Then I'll basically duplicate this key right here on the opposite side, and this I tilt it up a little bit. As it goes up, tilt it down, delete that key nearest the last one, just to get that head bob in there. And obviously you can tell right away that it's just way too much. It looks like it's the neck that I have to tone down. Let's go into my graph editor, grab rotation, which is Z, and I am going to tweak these out so that they're just not completely. So I'm just going to delete this key since they're both flat right here. Delete this key, move this one to the side a little bit, or leave it there, and just use a 10 to sort of flatten it out a tad bit. Same thing with this one. Actually, I'm going to grab that value as well so that they're all in the same value. Control copy, stick it on this one, control paste. Then right in here, come in and soup that out, expand that out just a bit. And the same with you. I could get deleted this one. This will allow you to do that as well. Now that's the somewhat proper way to manage keys, but I gotta tone it down still. So I'm just gonna grab these top two ones. Or actually, let me just zoom out. Make sure this is what I want first. Yeah, I want to tone these two down just a tad bit. So I'm gonna grab this and oops, forward. Let's put you down a few. See how this goes. Let's see a little more, shall we? All right, so now I adjusted the neck. The head's moving pretty good, pretty decent. Still a little bouncy, but for the sake of this animation and just understanding all the intricacies that I'm trying to add, I'm just going to leave that as is. Now I want to focus on the arms. The arms, I can make them several ways. One thing I want to do is I want to make sure I get any kind of hiccups out of them just to begin with, and I can tell on this arm there's a lot of hiccups going on. So just to get rid of that real quick. So as always, I'm just going to delete all the keys in between the first and middle poses, and then all the keys in between the middle and last pose on the shoulder, and then sort of just look at it and see how it's doing right there. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and offset keys. I'm going to delete. For the elbow, I'm deleting all of the in-between from the first to the middle, and the same thing with the second half of the animation, deleting from the middle to the end. Letting that sort of go. So what I want to do is at frame 1, you have the rotation here. Frame 2, it's there. Frame 1's back. I'm just going to add a little bit up on frame 1. A little bit up on frame 1. Then on the return on this arm, about frame 23, I'm going to stiffen it out just a little bit, not hyperextend it, but just straighten it out just a tad, so it can have a little bit of drag. And get that sort of drag going. And what I want to do there is I want to now get the hands. I don't want to move it too much, but just enough to. And here's where you can start getting rid of keys that you just don't need to have. I want to get rid of, like I said before, those ins and those outs. So what I'm going right here, as the hand comes back on frame 5, I want to sort of rotate it up, so it's dragging a little bit. Then I want to let it hit its apex here at 17. Then as it comes back about frame 24, I want to drag it back just a little bit. I don't want to do it too much. So I don't want his hand to feel like he's just like flopping, which right now it feels like it's flopping. So I don't want it to feel like it's flopping too much. I still feel like I want him to have control of it. So one way you can do these things, this is one thing that I want to do with my hands is when, not when I'm walking, actually walking. But as his hand comes forward, I want to rotate his hand sort of almost his top of his palm, or the top of his hand sort of pointing out. And I want to point it out as well. So when his hand comes to the back, I want it to sort of rotate, which rotating where his palm is coming towards his body. And as it comes back, I want his palm to sort of still face the other way with that little bit of drag. And obviously I need to fix some rotations. So that's the arm. And then just to add to it, go ahead and grab the fingers. But the thing I want to do with the fingers is so as he's swinging back, I want to separate his fingers a little bit, like if they're reaching. Let me delete. Grab all the keys. I'll delete all in between. Delete all those in between. So when his hand goes back, I want to spread his fingers out. Maybe a little bit more than I should. Ish, but not that bad. But as they swing back, I'm actually going to push them all sort of this way, because they're going to add to the drag that's in the hand. So when they come here, they're going to add to that drag, but then when they come back, they're going to sort of add to the opening. So on frame 25, I want to push them the opposite way, but I want to leave them more open. And this rig doesn't have any carpal tunnel bones. I don't know how to say it right. And the fingers to sort of make it feel more like the hand's more mushy. So with that, I'm done with this side of the arm. I want to do the same treatment on the other side. I want to work myself to the other side and start on the other arm. Delete, delete. Oops. Delete, yes, delete. And delete. So on this arm, same thing. I'm gonna go about frame 8-ish. Stiffen that bad boy up with the hand. Drag it just a little bit, and I forgot to delete all on the hand. Okay, so the first arm, I sort of took my time explaining everything. This one I'm trying to rush through it, and I'm falling all over the place. So this one, hand on frame 8, kicking it back this way. So when it comes up here, about frame 22, it's going to stay up there, but it's going to be rotated. Then it's going to come back. It's also going to be rotated, kicking out a little bit this way, which needs to be the same on this side. Boom. So when he comes back, he's got that. But then the arm on this side as well needs to stay up just a tad bit. So you have that feeling now. Alright, so now I'm going to add the fingers. As the fingers come forward, let me delete all these in between. Delete all those fingers, delete these fingers. Now on the way forward, I'm going to have them all drag. Oops, not like that. It's the knuckles. Spread them out just enough. They're all spread out. So now that spreads, and then time it gets up to here. Back here, they're going to be spreading again the opposite way. This is going to make the hands feel a little fleshy. For the sake of this, though, it's going to feel a little like over animated, I guess. Now I'm going to check, make sure all my rotations, oops, yeah, all my rotations are proper, which on my arms they are not because of these tangents. If you look, they are not flowing well with each other. Now they are. Let's go look at the other shoulder. And this will be a part of the polish phase of just going back, checking all your curves, and just making sure all of them are smoothly looping together. This goes for any animation on there. I notice on the knees is they pop out too much like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and tweak it so they don't pop out like that. Maybe this foot's maybe too heavily rotated too much. So I'm just going to tweak it so it's not that heavily tweaked out. Let's do this one. Oops. So now it's not too shabby. So with this, now if you would want to move the speed of your animation, you can do so, and you just adjust your feet accordingly using the method where you use your locators or blocks or indicators, whatever you want to call them, and sort of match your feet to those. But now this makes it easier to sort of see your animation walking in place, but also knowing that the feet stick to whatever speed you have. You can unmute. Unmute selected, and now you can see your character walk forward and actually move. Oh, and I still got to adjust some feet. All right, let's lock these feet down completely. And this is how this is going to be done. So foot one, so my foot looks like it hits here and it slides back and a little bit forward as he goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at to where my heel is wanting to hit here when it should be hitting back here. Tap a little bit. So my heel is going to hit here. I'm just going to go ahead and match it up frame by frame so it's hitting here. So go ahead and keep the foot matched. Now obviously right here I'm just eyeballing it. I don't have my script where I can actually just plant it
in that location, which is fine for me right now because there's several things that needs to be done anyways. So in the translation, where we go in Z, you'll notice how everything's sort of smoothly into it. So what I want to do, because I know for this foot, the foot's planted from here all the way down to about right here. So I'm going to grab all these keys. Go ahead and hit this one, which is a straight key, which makes all your curves go straight into the other one with no manipulation on any of it. And you'll see how it locks down the position a little bit easier, a little bit more. Well, this sort of allows the slide to sort of happen into the beginning of the plan of the foot, but then it sort of locks it down and then sort of freeze right for the next one. And I'm going to sort of do the same thing with this foot, but just on the Z. So I know this foot is planting about here, and then it's supposed to stay still all the way until about here. So grab all these keys, hit straight. If I want, let me see if I can delete these. I should be able to hit the straight. Oops. Oh, goes just a little bit from here to there. So what it is my foot is not completely lined up. I'm gonna line you up about right here because that's when you actually hit. So let's look at this one. The key hits, then it's just off all the way until there. There the key hits. Make those straight. Oh, but still got some adjusting to do. Keep going to the wrong one. Alright, so now I got my character's feet. They're planting, they're walking, they're sticking to the ground. Only thing I have left is the knee pops. Right now the knee is popping, and several ways to fix those is you can sit there and you adjust your waist, adjust your hips however you need to sort of make it work. But the quicker result for most of this is going to be actually scaling. Oh, where's the scale? It's on this side, on the XE. Scaling your knees. Some controllers have, some rigs have a controller where you can grab the knee and actually move it out. Like this one's completely locked out. But here you can just sort of stretch the IK, which I want to stretch the upper one. Sort of make it happen. Oh, yeah, so it makes a slight bend. Oh, there, if I can do it. So eliminate the pop. Then when your feet come down, sort of like on this rig right, this part right here, sort of locks out right in here and locks out almost all the way until it touches. So to fix that right off the bat, I'll just nope, not that. Get this one. Use the upper to sort of stretch it just enough so it doesn't bend. Sometimes what happens with the knee, like you'll have a point here, and then right when it's about to hit, it pops backwards. Like it's going forward, and then it sort of pops backwards. Obviously, you don't want that to happen because that's what makes the leg looks like it's the knee looks like it's popping. So I just want to extrude out just a little bit. So it's always in front. Sort of eliminate that a pop. Alright guys, well that concludes this walk cycle. If you did enjoy it, I hope you did learn something from it. Go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification button, hit the like button below if you did learn anything. I hope I did show you something you didn't know before, and if there's something you do want to know, and just let me know in the comments about what you might want to see next week or any future tutorials, and I'll see you guys next time.